What's up? Welcome to the podcast. This week, we're kicking off the podcast with our Peak and Pits, a spicy Ask Alex, and of course, we do have a special resilient guest, and this week, she's talking about DA and a series of unaliving herself. So if that's too much for you this week, fast forward to the end, or hit us up next week, every Monday, 8 a.m. Welcome to the Resilient AF podcast. I'm Alex Fresh.
And I'm BennettKnows. We believe everything vibrates at a certain frequency, and we're here to raise the vibration.
You'll hear stories of resilience, manifestation, and what to do when you find that even resilience has a toll. Because the bitch is tired, honey.
Lights, camera, action. We are ready.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. That means it's Monday, everybody's favorite day of the week, solely because we have a new episode of the podcast.
Yes, and as Alex just told us, we have a juicy episode.
Coming at ya hot. I mean,
or cold. It's been hot outside these last few days.
I mean, kind of.
It has.
Define hot.
Time to put in your AC.
Yeah, that's true. I did actually turn mine on.
Yeah, so.
It has been hot, but it's cooling back down, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I was talking to someone and I'm like, we're officially in summer. And they're like, not yet. You know, here in the PNW, they always say that the summer doesn't start
until after the 4th of July. Yes.
Which is insane because where I'm from, Providence, Rhode Island, the summer starts in May for sure.
Ooh, I wish.
Right off the bat. Yeah.
Is it right off the back or right off the bat?
I thought it was right off the bat.
Well, I have always thought it was right off the bat. I mean, like, would it make sense if it was right off the bat? Like a ball right off the bat?
I mean, when you hit a baseball, it's right off the bat, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Right off the back. Like, right. You can have the shirt right off my back. But but is it?
I think so. Right off I thought it was right off the bat, not
hit
the
us
bat.
Up. We would look at
ever said the bat.
Okay. We can't look it up right now because we're using our phones to record for YouTube. Yes. That we're not going to post probably. Haha.
We'll get there one day.
But I'm going to Google it as soon as we're done. And I'm probably going to be wrong, but it's fine. I'll be okay with that. I just need to know because I've heard you say that before and I've
always
wondered.
Looked at me weird. Like, what the hell is he saying?
But yeah, like Bennett was saying, we have a juicy episode coming at you hot.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. BAT, right off the bat. Swing bada. We're gonna hit it off with our peaks and pits.
Like what you did there.
And then it's gonna be Ask Alex, and then we definitely have our resilient guest ready for the interview.
Should I just jump into peaks and pits?
I think you should because I really want to hear it.
Oh,
you got some juiciness this week. I'm pretty sure I heard.
Just a little bit. So we have talked about this on the podcast, but it's been like during quote unquote sex. So it's like a Ask Alex topic, but it happened in my real life.
Okay.
So have you ever called somebody else's name?
I don't think I have. Like in a conversation?
Maybe argument, even during sex, which is awkward.
No, I can't think of a time that I have.
Well,
Why?
I did.
You did?
3 or 4 times in a row.
You weren't having sex?
I wasn't having sex, unfortunately. Conversation. It was like actually comical, but not comical because it ruined my fucking night. We didn't get to watch the horror movie.
The horror? Oh, you didn't? I have secondhand embarrassment for you.
It was a horror movie itself.
No, wait, so you like, it ruined the night?
It ruined the night. I was so pissed off and I don't know why. Yeah.
Well, what the hell? Were you like, how were you feeling about that? Like,
I felt horrible because you
didn't get to see the horror movies. You didn't get a cuddle.
That was definitely the pit of my week because I didn't want to make anybody feel bad, but I didn't get to watch the horror movie.
Damn.
So that was my pit.
Poor guy.
I know. I'm sorry.
What's your peak?
My peak is, we kind of went over it. I put my AC in. That's small wins here.
Oh, hell yeah. It does a difference.
It does.
A huge difference.
You know?
I think that everywhere should have AC.
Usually places do have AC.
Not here in the PNW.
Here in the PNW. There's no AC.
That we should,
though. If you're hot, you're hot.
No, because like it is so uncomfortable at night. Like a fan is just, I hate fans. So not having AC is brutal. But I have an AC that I plugged in as well.
Yeah, if you don't got an AC, just put a fan in your window. And Alex is like, Like, what?
No.
What? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
You know, us poor people do. A fan in the window.
I know, I've seen it before.
She's like, I've seen them.
I've seen that before, I think, somewhere driving by.
Yeah,
Passing through town somewhere.
We're winning. I got an AC
Hell
plugged
yeah.
in, so I'm excited about that. My
Amazing.
house is nice and chill.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that's my peak and my pit. What about you, Catherine? I mean, Alex.
I'm dying. Okay. What about you, Brandon?
And I kept on saying it over and over.
Fucking embarrassing. Okay. I need it. Okay.
My brain was not working. Anyway, okay.
My
How
pit
was
and
your
peak. I'll start with my pit. My pit is, well, not necessarily that I went to the movies with my son Jax, but it was the movie that I saw just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, because I saw Inside Out 2.
Oh no.
And we actually left early.
What?
Yeah. That's how much we couldn't do it. Like, so disappointing.
I heard
like,
it was so good.
I didn't like it. And Jax didn't like it either. Like, we left. And like, I don't know. It just wasn't as entertaining as I thought it was going to be.
The movie?
Right? And like, we go to the movies like once a month probably. And we were looking forward to Inside Out too. But the first one was like so good that I feel like maybe just had too high of expectations. But also, some movies that have a sequel are never as good as the first.
Yeah.
But this one like didn't live up to what I thought it was going to be. I was so excited for months. They, announced it months ago.
Yeah.
And then we left early. So that was a pit.
I heard it was really good though. Somebody told me, they were like, I went to the movies and seen it. Yeah, to each their own.
So my Rotten Tomatoes, it's like, I would give it 33% Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed you still go to the movies.
Yep. They're fun. I like going with him. Creates memories, and we have a good time. I like let him totally like snack out and junk food and all of it. So
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And then my peak is, I mean, I feel like life has been very rocky for like a while, up and down, up and down, up and down. I try to make the best of it, resilience. And it's coming back up from a down. I feel like this last week has been really good, and a lot of good things are coming. And
sure is.
I have a few things that I feel like would be a peak, but one of them is I'm going to Zion National Forest this coming week, and I'm just so excited. Like, it's like probably one of the most beautiful places in this country. I'm going for my best friend's birthday, and we're just gonna go explore for a bit. So I'm really looking forward to that. That is going to be our next resilient guest, is her and her husband. And I think what I'm going to do with them is they both have really good stories, and then their story together. So I'm going to do my best friend Shorty, and then I'm going to do her husband Lloyd, and then I'm going to do one with both of them. So that's coming in the near future for our resilient guests. And my other peak is I pretty much like kind of found a Beamer gang that I joined.
Oh.
So I'm super excited about that.
Wow.
So we're just going to go like roam around the PNW together, and it's like the best of the best M3s, and I'm just excited to do that on some of my weekends in the summer. So yeah, that's my peak, and that's my pit, and that's it.
Wow. That sounds awesome. Zion is so beautiful.
It is. Like the slot canyons, I'm so excited for.
The pictures pop up on my phone all the time, and I can't even believe that I was there. I'm like, wow, you took that photo? So
right.
It's going to be amazing.
All right. Now it's time for Ask Alex and Bennett.
Yes.
We should do that. Ask Alex and Bennett. This is an A and B conversation, so see your way in.
Come on in and ask us a question.
We just made that up right there.
Yeah. All right.
What is the question this week, Bennett?
The question is, you're a witch, right?
Yes. First of all, before we go on, let me explain what that means, because people are gonna be like, I'm sorry, you're a what? I'm a witch. Yes, of course. I'm always going to be advocating for normalizing things, because society brought us up in a time where witches are a bad thing, but you can be a good witch and you can be a bad witch. So before we even carry on with the whole witchy thing, I don't even know what you're going to say, but I'm a good witch, okay? And and to even classify yourself as a witch, you can just be manifesting in your head things. And that is creating spells. Spells, they don't have to be bad, but it all depends on your divinity and what you're doing. What's your question?
Well, yeah, you kind of already brought it up, but they want to know, someone wants to know, have you ever done a bad spell?
Oh, okay, no. So there's also like a ton of different type of witches. There's witches that just classify themselves as like, I would just to dumb it down, like a general witch. Like they just don't classify them as any sort of witch. They just do a lot of different things, which I feel like I could definitely relate to. There's like a kitchen witch. They like to cook and they like to be in the kitchen. They like to make a lot of different recipes. There's a cosmic witch that likes astrology, which I connect to a lot. There's a hedge witch. The hedge witch is like
in the garden, growing things.
They're just like a healer. Okay. Like herbalist,
okay, that makes sense.
Head witch, and they like are kind of just do like a lot of general spells. And you could do very easy spells where you could just manifest something, like write it down on a piece of paper, burn it. Or if you're trying to cut ties with something, same thing. Like you write down a person's name, or you have a picture of them and you burn it. Like if they're toxic for you, you want to cut off that relationship. Those are super easy spells to do if you have an intention, right? If it's all about the intention. And then they could be so much further than that. You could need so many different things, and you gotta tie a string around a candle, and then you gotta put it in a lemon, and you gotta dip it in salt, and then you gotta wait 3 hours, and you gotta put it in the left corner of your house.
What is that
during this time of the week? It's like I'm just saying they could get very deep in these spells and the recipes for them, and like what they do and what they manifest for your future. It's like those are very extravagant spells, but I have a lot of spell books too, and they break it down on how to do it. And it's like, some take a long time, and that's not me. I'm very like impatient with that sort of thing. Like I need quicker spells, but I mean, a lot of them include salt, water, moon water, candles, herbs, and intentions. Yeah. Paper, fire. But I've never done a bad spell. Getting back to the question, I've never done a bad spell. And this is why. Because your thoughts are so powerful, and I have realized that I manifest very easily. So I know that my mission here is to help raise the vibration of the earth. As humans, we vibrate at a very low level, and I'm trying to help raise that so we're more peaceful and it's less chaotic. And if I have bad thoughts, if I do bad things, there's karma. And I believe karma is so real. And I don't care if nobody knows if I do something bad or send a spell back or have an intention or thought, but I believe that my guides do, the universe does, and whoever is my higher God and ancestors and guides, they can hear my thoughts. And I genuinely don't want bad for people and things anyways. So it's really easy to not wish bad things upon people. But even just knowing that karma is so real and I manifest very easily, like even if someone is putting a bad spell on me, I know how to protect my energy and I know how to send it back. And sometimes depending on what it is, because I get a lot of messages from my guides about things, depending on what and who it is, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, I will send it back with love, because ultimately I'm not going to be able to raise the vibration of the earth unless I have pure intention of love in my heart for every living thing, which has been only a very few times where I will just not accept that energy and I will send it back. I don't send it back with love. I may just send it back, which means they're going to get that energy that they were trying to send to me. Those actually, I feel like in the moment, I felt bad doing even just that, not sending it back with love, because it's not going to help raise the vibration. Those people are still going to be held down. There's still, at least if I send it back with love, it's going to help raise their vibration, because my heart chakra, it's done a lot of healing. It's unblocked, and I have a lot of love to give and show, and plants, animals, people, anybody. Like I want everybody to be vibing high. And if I do a bad spell, everybody who matters to me in whole spiritual realm of my ancestors and guides and how I'm going to evolve will know always. And I 100% believe that. So I, in my heart of hearts, just want good for people. So I will never do a bad spell, because it will come back on you times 3. That's what I believe. It will come back on you times 3. And let me tell you, even if you want to, this is what I always reference when I talk about how the littlest detail of like a spell that you can do on somebody. You can give someone like a zit. If you want someone to have a zit on their nose for their prom date, for their wedding date, you can absolutely do that. But it's going to come back to you times 3. So think about that, You
might have 3 zits.
Yeah, exactly. So it's whatever you do is going to come back to you, and it's going to be way freaking worse. So just remember that. And that's my rant.
Okay.
On that.
Okay.
And thanks for asking that, because that was a fun one to answer.
Yes. Well, are you going to ask me?
Have you ever done a bad spell?
No, I haven't, because I haven't done bad spells. I've done like manifestation spells and like things like that to like manifest stuff,
Yeah.
Like new beginnings and things I need to get rid of. And when you were talking about the witches, you said one about the dumbed down one.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't say you didn't call it a dumbed down witch, but I'm just saying I would probably be the dumbed down witch, the one that just does the real simple things, the really, really, really things. That's me. But when I was a kid, I was cracking up just now talking about spells, because we had a babysitter that would watch me and my dad's girlfriend's kids. And one time she had us like all bring out our crayons. I'm really hitting you guys off with the accent this week. And she's like, we're going to melt these crayons and we're going to do a spell. We're going to do a love spell or something, right? And we all melted down our crayons into like one bigger candle, and then we like sat in a circle, and this was all led by the babysitter. I'm pretty sure like my parents didn't know this was happening.
It would be like something that I would do if I like was a witch in my teenage years or something. Yeah. I'm like, all right, kids, let's go. So we grab a picture of who you hate.
We all sat in a circle around the table, and like she lit this big candle that she put together with all of our crayons, and you know, we prayed. And I don't know what we prayed for, but I do remember the next day she was like, yeah, kids are flying kites in Afghanistan because of our spell that we did. And
I'm sorry, what does that even mean?
I don't know. I guess kids can't fly flags in Afghanistan. So she thought that her spell was what was like stopping things in Afghanistan. And as a kid, I was like, so like, wow, we did that. The kids are free.
Okay, so what do you think about her?
Was it a good spell or a bad spell?
Yeah.
I thought it was like an ain't shit spell. I don't think anything happened. I don't know.
That's weird. Yeah, that's a weird witch.
Isn't that? So yeah, I don't do bad spells. Maybe my babysitter did, but.
What a weirdo. Me. Okay, right? Let's not do spells with other people's children. I mean, people, when they hear the word witch, they're just like, they just think bad.
Could you imagine someone, like you ask someone to like watch Jax and you come back and he's doing a seance in your living room?
Oh, I would be livid. I would be livid.
And you're a witch.
Yeah, because I don't know. People have like weird intentions. Like, yeah. I mean, unless I like knew the person, knew their vibe, because like I wholeheartedly believe in like good spells. Yeah. You know, it's manifesting what you want in your future. And it's all good things. It's like herbs and candles and thoughts and intentions, which are good. So, and I've only seen good from it. So people are just scared. Yeah. People are just scared of change. But don't judge a book by its cover. If I was to say what kind of witch I am, I'm a green witch because I like weed, and a cosmic witch because I like astrology. That's my favorite.
Well, you heard it here first.
All right. And if you have a good question for Ask Alex and Bennett.
Yeah, and me. Don't forget.
We should rename it Ask Alex and Bennett.
Yeah.
Then hit us up on Instagram at ResilientAF3. Tres. And we'll ask it. So this week, our guest is named Samantha.
Yes.
And I'm going to read her email. Hey, Alex and Bennett. Mondays have always been my least favorite of the week for obvious reasons. Haha. But your podcast episodes that come out every Monday morning is something that I always look forward to. Your vibe is so great, and how in tune you are with your guests that come on, I find so admirable. I'm sure you have emails and IG messages blowing up your inbox with listeners who want to be the next guest, so my feelings won't be hurt if you bypass my story. Being married fairly young, but thinking I was being smart and responsible was quite a whirlwind. Married at 21, pregnant and becoming a mom at 22. Then my husband was in the Army, stationed at Fort Lewis for 4 years. He deployed when I was only 8 weeks pregnant with my oldest, missing the entire pregnancy and birth. He didn't even meet our son until he was 5 months old. Fast forward about a year, I get pregnant with my daughter. We get orders that he will be stationed down in Fort Bliss in El Paso. Soon after we get there, my then husband asked for a divorce, and that's when things started to spiral. I wanted to unalive myself and became severely depressed. There's more to the story, but maybe this is a good stopping point before I really go off on a tangent. Thank you for being you and for having the courage to share your own personal stories and allowing others the opportunity to share their stories as well. Much love, Samantha. Thank you, Samantha, for being willing to share your story. Yes. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really great to actually finally officially meet you guys.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thanks for your support. We really appreciate you listening too, for real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll just let you kind of jump into your story and take it from here.
Okay. Well, my story doesn't start until like I'm like a young adult. Like my childhood, first and foremost, like was like the most stable childhood in America. I mean, youngest of 5. It's like, I mean, the Brady Bunch pretty much. So growing up, I was like very, very naive to the fact that my childhood and my household was very much just like how everyone's household was. So until I got to my adult years, and then I realized like, wow, like my upbringing was very, very rare. So fast forward when I'm turned 19, I'm, out of high school, a year out of high school, maybe, I think like a year out of high school. I was living with my parents, didn't really have much of anything going on, kind of had some sort of idea what I wanted to do, but kind of not at the same time. I was taking classes at my local community college, working part-time at a hospital, just doing like housekeeping stuff. Not really have much of an idea really where I wanted to go. Not much ambition I just didn't really know. So 19, I met a boy. And of course, I feel like every story kind of involves a boy at some point. So I'm meeting a boy, and through a mutual friend, she dated one of his friends. So I met him through there, and things were fine. Things were progressing pretty fast between us. He was at the time just turned 21 and I was 19. And when I met him, he was in the very beginning stages of enlisting in the Army. So he was like, going to the recruiting center and like training and like doing the stuff he had to do in order to prepare to go to boot camp. And then come March of 2007, he actually did ship off to boot camp to Fort Benning, Georgia. And he was there until the very beginning of July when he graduated. But I did end up going over there Memorial Day weekend. So that was May of 2007. And that weekend, he had a 4-day weekend, so which like family members can come and, hang out and visit or whatever. So I went there. He ended up proposing, which I was kind of already sort of knowing it was going to happen.
How long were you guys dating before he proposed?
So we met September 2006 and we started off right away. And then, so I guess I would say May, that was like 8 months later.
Okay.
That was progressing pretty quickly.
I feel like the military culture, it kind of like fosters and like, everyone gets married so young. I was married into the military really young too. I feel like those marriages can go pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I feel like it's very much like the norm in the military community as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, getting married young quickly is like just a thing there.
I feel like it's super. Yeah, I came home with a rock on my finger. He ended up graduating from boot camp a month later. It was the very, very beginning of July. He came home, and then luckily to our surprise, because he's local too, so he was stationed in Fort Lewis. So it's like, well, I mean, what are the chances of both of us living in Washington and him being stationed in Fort Lewis and being so close to family? It was just so bizarre, but I was so grateful at the same time. Okay, so planning a wedding, gonna get married, and then we decided, what about March? Let's go and do March. So it's like, a year and a half after we started actually met, it's like we're already, going to get hitched. So fast forward up to March, we go and get married. I'm still living with my mom and dad at this time. I didn't actually live with him prior to getting married.
What did mom and dad think?
I think they were kind of surprised. They definitely had their opinions for sure. But I feel like my mom was kind of like the buffer between them two. She is very much kind of like the more, I guess, reasonable one. She kind of like speaks reason into my dad with a lot of situations. So, it's one of those things where, it's really not our place to really say anything. We can have our opinions, but do we really want to jeopardize our relationship with our daughter if we actually do, I guess, say what we really feel like we want to say? Yeah. So March, we get married. This was March of 2008. We get married. I get pregnant right away. And I guess it wasn't really much of a surprise. We were like not trying, but we weren't like actually thinking it was going to happen. So I get pregnant. I actually end up miscarrying pretty quickly after, which was like, I was like maybe 5-6 weeks pregnant, which it was really hard on me. I'm not really sure how it was on him. He acted like he was kind of like broken up about it, but I'm not really sure he was. And at this point, we were living off base. We were on an apartment in Lakewood, Washington. And so we were living there. And then I wasn't working for a long time. I was just kind of like doing like the whole household duties, not really doing a whole lot of anything. And then after we got married, though, is when like the drinking really started to kind of pick up and take off. And I feel like, I don't know. It's like maybe that's just what military guys do. They just drink and party. And so I was kind of like going with the motions, not really thinking anything.
Did you drink?
I don't drink. I have before, but it's like I was never like a heavy. So he was drinking a lot, and it's progressed into like frequently like just going out and partying and going to bars and this and that. It's like I was kind of like going along for the ride, not really worrying about it. I'm like, okay, like he's young, it'll get out of his system, like it's fine. So he's drinking a lot, and then we're kind of, bouncing from apartment to apartment, not really knowing exactly what we're doing. And then it turns out that he got orders to be shipped off to Afghanistan, middle of 2009. So I guess it was July 2009. He got orders to go ship off there. And then quickly after we found out that he did get orders to be shipped off, I ended up getting pregnant with my son. And it was very beginning of June, I found out I was pregnant, and then he was actually being shipped off July 10th or 11th. So it's like I was very newly pregnant, like, my emotions were everywhere.
How did you feel specifically about him leaving? Because that could be a lot, especially like, you know, that's supposed to be your support system. He's going overseas. You're going to be without him. And plus you're moving from apartment to apartment. So it doesn't sound like the stability was quite there or where you would want it to be for him to, you know, take off like that. So
yeah, emotionally, I was kind of a wreck. I don't really think it hit me until he actually left. But I was trying to prepare myself to like when he were to leave, it's like, what's that going to look like? Is he going to come back for R&R leave? Like sometime during deployment, is he actually going to get to see my son? Like, is he going to be able, you know, to meet him, you know, before, I mean, he's like several months old.
How long was he going for?
Yeah, that's a whole
year.
Okay.
So I end up getting pregnant. And then he gets ordered. I mean, he already had the orders to leave. And then so we were kind of prepping on that. I'm like, okay, like, am I going to live in this apartment by myself and do the pregnancy by myself? Or am I going to maybe go back, move in with my parents and have that support system that I needed? Because I mean, I was like an emotional wreck. Like I was just super beside myself. So we decided that I was going to go and move back with my mom and dad. So that's what I did. He shipped off. I packed up all my stuff in my from my apartment, put everything that I could in my mom and dad's garage, and put everything else back in storage, and then just kind of hung out there. And my pregnancy was rough. It's like, I think just because I was so emotionally just like gone as it is, plus like the hormones that are raging through me, it's like super tough. And
not an ideal situation for your pregnancy, right? Like I couldn't imagine. That would be tough.
Yeah, and pregnancies themselves, like they can be already tough as it is. So I go through the pregnancy and it's really, really hard, but thankfully I have my mom and dad kind of there to kind of lean on and support my brothers and sisters and all that good stuff. So he's gone. Things are kind of, I mean, as okay as they can be. Like, I mean, he's halfway around the world. Things are just kind of funky, wonky. We're just trying to kind of figure things out, you know, different time zones and all this stuff. So we're Skyping as much as we can. We're talking as much as we can. He's going off to missions. He's doing this and that. Jump to February 2010 is when I actually did give birth to my son. He was not there for it. He was on phone call, you know, hearing everything going on, but he just wasn't there, which was hard enough as it is. And my sister-in-laws were there and like the doctors. So, I mean, I had the support I needed, but I really wanted him there, of course.
Of course.
So yeah, but my son, things are fine as they can be. I'm still living with my mom and dad at this time. He got orders to come back mid-July of 2010. So I end up finding a house to rent down south near Fort Lewis again. I think it was May of 2010. I found a place. So me and my son move in there. We're just kind of like twiddling our thumbs, doing our stuff, and just waiting for dad to come home. So he comes home finally, and things are great as far as I knew. And then I think I was really naive to the situation to where he would come home. He would be perfectly fine. Like, you know, no like emotional trauma, like he'd be totally fine, but he was also infantry. So it's like, he was kind of like in the heart of the war. So I just kind of feel like, okay, well, he's fine. Like he'll be okay. Like he has me to lean on and, you know, everything will be fine. So the transition was really hard. I mean, he came home at this point, my son was 5 months old. And so he came home, he all of a sudden had to jump into fatherhood. And I think like he kind of knew that, but he wasn't super prepared for it. I guess I can understand that's kind of a big role to take on.
Yeah.
He jumps into fatherhood, and I think it's like a huge just like shock to him. It's like, oh my gosh, like I can't just like go out and party all the time or anymore, and you know, without finding a babysitter, this and that. But that really didn't stop him from, you know, partying and drinking, and it just like became more and more. And there was some physical abuse, nothing like hitting or slapping or punching, more like pulling and grabbing and pushing and stuff like that. So like there's like no actual like physical marks on my body to where I needed to cover up, or, you know, people question like, oh my gosh, like what happened to you? And mind you, like I was never like a perfect wife. Like I had my faults. Like I was a handful. I mouthed off. It's just kind of what I did. So I kind of felt like, okay, well, I was mouthy. Like, you know, I probably shouldn't have said what I said. So maybe I deserved what I got, which I mean, obviously looking back now, like I didn't.
Right.
So the partying and drinking continued and things got really bad, just fighting a lot. And then, yeah, that's kind of how things were for a good year and a half. And then September 2011 came and he got orders to get restationed down in El Paso, Texas at Fort Bliss. So shortly after we found that out, I got pregnant with my daughter. And so that happened. And then November, I think it was like right around Thanksgiving of 2011, we moved down to El Paso, Texas, and we had, you know, put up there, we got in a house, whatever. I'm about 3 months pregnant now. And 2 weeks after we get there, he said, oh, by the way, I'm not very happy. I want a divorce. I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'm in a brand new city. I don't have a car. I don't have a job. I don't have friends. Like, I'm kind of stuck. So I begged him and pleaded with him, like, hey, let's do counseling. Like, what do we have to, I mean, we have a lot to lose, but at the same time, it's like, let's not just throw it away over, whatever you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to counseling for a while. I don't think it helped at all looking back. It's like, I think back then we thought it helped, but it really didn't help at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of more of those things where it's like, we just kind of slapped a Band-Aid on it and called it good and just kind of swept everything under the rug. So we did that for a while. We saw it back then. Everything was fine. And, we patched things up. And then June of 2012, I gave birth to my daughter. He was there for that one, thankfully. Okay. And so was my mom, who down and was for the birth. And then after she was born, I don't know where the shift was really. I mean, the partying was still very much like a thing, and the drinking, and it's just like all the time. But I feel like it became even more so when my daughter came into the picture. So the partying and the drinking continued. It's like every Friday night, every Saturday night, he would go out, just get completely just obliterated, come home like at 3, 4, 5 a.m., sleep the day away, and then do it the next night. It was just kind of our thing.
And was the physical abuse still, was he still like pulling and pushing and,
Yeah. So it wasn't even all that common. I can probably count on one hand how many times that kind of thing happened, but it was still, and it kind of turned into more of like emotional abuse at this point now.
Which is like worse. A lot of people don't know. They say that like, the emotional abuse, you can't see the bruises, but it like really does a working on people.
Yeah. With you for sure. So the partying continued. He was doing all the time, and like I wasn't working, and I had a 2-year-old and a brand new baby. It's like, I mean, obviously I'm not going to be going to work. So bread maker, bringing home the bacon. Every paycheck would go straight to booze. Like that's what he would do. Like I would struggle to try to buy diapers for the kids and like just like the basic essentials that I needed. So I finally got to the point where I would say stuff and I mean like mention like his drinking and like how it kind of like needs to kind of chill out. And he would just get like really, really angry. And it's like, okay, it's like we're just arguing all the time, like more so than we ever were before. And so I kind of got to the point where I just stopped talking. I kind of felt like, looking back, I kind of felt like that's kind of like when I started to check out. I just didn't feel like the fighting was really worth it, really, but kind of at the same time, I was kind of like at that weird stage. Because obviously I had my kids to think about, like their safety and well-being. Not that like he ever, did anything to the kids. Like, I mean, he was an okay dad at the time, but I mean, physically he was present, like when he was home, but emotionally he was like, playing video games or like on the computer doing whatever he was doing.
Yep.
So we were just kind of like more so just like going through the motions, like saying much of anything, letting him do his thing, like whatever. And it wasn't known to me anything that, he was doing that betraying me as far as like infidelity, or I always kind of had my suspicions, but I had nothing to back up my theory. So I never like really brought that up as an issue. So we were just doing that for a while, and the kids were growing, and my son was 4 and my daughter ended up being 2 at the time.
Okay,
and
so
then
you guys have been married for like how long at this point? Like 5 years?
Yeah, we got married 2008, and then this was like, gosh, like we got about 5-ish years into it, I would say. So we were just going through the motions for a while, just month after month, just kind of like getting by, whatever. And then he got noticed that he was going to be discharged. He just didn't want to re-up his contract. He was kind of done with the military. Great. So I kind of thought that as a blessing, like, oh my gosh, finally, like military life is over. Like it had its perks. I made some really great friends. That's great. But it's like my like mental state of mind was just shot. And I think his was too. Yeah. So at this, my daughter was 2, and he had an opportunity to go out to Houston for an internship or a journeyman job or something out there. And like, well, I don't have a house to live in. Like, I don't know where you're going to stay, like up in a hotel. Like, I don't really want that for my kids. So it's like, I'm just going to go back up to Washington with my parents for a while. You get everything settled in Houston and then come send for us, whenever you're ready. So that was the plan. So this was August of 2014. Me and my mom drove back up here to Washington from Texas, and he went out to Houston. And things were kind of I mean, things were really ever okay, really, but it's like we kind of just tried to make it work. So he called me up one day and said that he wasn't happy. He wanted a divorce. I'm like, cool. Like, this is the second time around I've heard this. Like, this is really, really great. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if you want to go through with this, go ahead. I'll sign the papers, whatever. So then not long after that, he called me up and said, oh, by the way, like, just kidding. I don't want this. Like, let's work this out. But by that time I was like, no, I'm kind of done. Like, I don't want the back and forth crap. I don't want the emotions. Like, I just need to kind of get away from this because this is very, very unhealthy. And I don't want this for my kids. Like, I don't know what you
or yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I told him that I was just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, you go do your thing. I'm going to do my thing and we can try to see what comes of it. But it's like, I'm not going to make any promises. So had a lot of reflection. I did a lot of thinking. I did a lot of prayer. I just been like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Do I stick it out for the sake of my kids? I'm like, well, I mean, I don't really feel like that's like a good enough reason. It's like, you don't stick it out for the sake of your kids. You have to stick it out for the sake of everyone, because not just me who's involved, not just the kids who are involved, like everyone is involved. So I ended up calling him up. I'm like, look, I've done a lot of self-reflection and I figured out that I don't want this anymore. So, and he was still in Houston at this time. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I thought we were going to work it out. I'm like, well, no, I'm not really into it for like, this reason and that reason, that, whatever. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to, come up there and we're going to work this out. So he leaves everything in Houston, drives up here for like, I don't know, like he was here for like maybe 2 days. He drove up here and like, he was just like begging and pleading, like, no, please don't do this. I'm so sorry. Let's work it out. Like, we have kids, we have a family, let's work it out. But I was done already. So I eventually divorced. Served him. And this was August 2015, I finally filed for divorce. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit. But August 2015, I file, I serve him. We start going to the courts, and that's a whole process in itself. I'm sure you know, Alex. Yeah, but November is when we started the court hearing, and we were in the court I think like once every 2 weeks for 3 months. So it was just like a long process. He just was not into signing. Like he was just like not into agreeing. And I don't know if it was because he was trying to get out of paying the child support that the state said that he was going to be owing, or what his actual reason was. I'm not sure. But we did that, and the divorce was actually finally finalized in January 2016. I'm like, oh my gosh, hallelujah. Like this is like such a blessing. Like, and I almost kind of felt because it's like, I should be celebrating my divorce. I don't want to get divorced. At the same time, it's like, okay, well, here I am. Like, I'm kind of like feeling free now. I'm kind of like doing my own thing. And, my kids are kind of, away from that kind of atmosphere, which is obviously what I wanted.
So you had full custody?
Yeah, well, yeah, we actually did have split custody. He lived way down south, like probably a good 2-hour drive from where I was.
Yeah.
Up here in Snohomish County. I mean, I don't want to say I had full custody. I mean, it was very much split custody, but he was kind of in the mindset it's like, okay, well, maybe I'm just going to be a dad when it's convenient for me because I have work and I have this to take care of and that to take care of. So that's kind of how it started out. But yes, very much so, like predominantly the kids were with me, and that's fine. Like I gave him every opportunity to, have the kids on this day or that weekend or whatever. And sometimes he took the opportunity, sometimes he didn't. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of on you then. So January 2016, the divorce is final. I'm finally getting back on my feet. I'm still living with my mom and dad at this time. I'm working at Starbucks, so that's not really paying a whole heck of a lot. And then I finally, like, a job opportunity presents itself. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and take it. It's a very steady Monday through Friday, kind of boring office work, whatever, but it's perfect for like, my kid's schedule. It's because my son was in kindergarten this time and he had just turned 6. And then my daughter was 3. So I was kind of like, okay, like I'm not going to live with my mom and dad forever. Like I need something that's obviously going to get me back on my feet. So I get a new job, I get better pay, and then I end up getting my own apartment. So I'm kind of like finally just getting things lined up for my life, which felt just so great after like such a long journey of like garbage.
I feel like that's where I'm at now. So I feel like it's like getting up a mountain.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm working this new job, and then I end up finding another boy or meeting another boy. And that's where things took another turn. He fed me a load of crap that, he was still married, but he's going to get separated and he wanted to get a divorce. And he had 2 kids from, his current wife at the time. I'm like, okay. So it was kind of like feeding me the lines that he knew I wanted to hear in order to, I guess, kind of reel me in. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's great. Like, let me know whenever things start to progress with the separation and divorce. And so he told me that, things were kind of starting to progress with the courts and, papers had been kind of like filed, but not really super into, I don't know, things are just kind of like sort of strange, I guess, for them. And I'm like, okay, so this was June of 2016. We're like officially like label ourselves as boyfriend, girlfriend. I kind of roll my eyes now, but it's like at the time I was like, all in heaven and whatever. So
and like a year and a half after.
Yeah.
Like about a year and a half.
Yeah.
After the divorce.
Yeah. So things are progressing pretty quickly. He ends up moving in with my apartment, this little rinky-dink apartment with my kids, like just a month after. It's like, because for some reason I thought it was a good idea.
Oh my gosh. I want to throw out there that I feel like that's a red flag when someone moves in so quickly. Yeah. And I've been there, but it reminds me of like, have you heard of hobosexual?
Yes.
People who just date you so they have somewhere to stay, like a couch to stay on. Hobosexual. They're only dating for a place to stay. I don't know if that's the situation, but I'm calling a flag on the play.
Absolutely. No, you're not wrong at all. Yeah. And at this point, I think I'm 20. I must be 28, I guess. So, I mean, I'm old enough to know better. It's like, I should have seen it like, hey, well, get your shit together. Like, I mean, whatever. But he moves in a month later. Things seem to be really good. It's like, we didn't ever fight. We didn't ever like disagree on much of anything. He still kept saying, oh yeah, well, my divorce is still kind of like going proceedings. Like, we only talk to each other when it comes to the kids, this and that, whatever. I'm like, okay, like whatever. Like, it's kind of like, in like fantasy land, and like I just believed everything he said. So so we were living together, and then fighting kind of started. A lot of emotional stuff, nothing physical. He started kind of getting a little bit of controlling, like what I would wear and like who I would talk to and how I would talk to them and who my friends are and just kind of like everything, which kind of took a toll on me. I kind of call him out on it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm talking to them because they're my coworker. I'm like, I mean, they're sitting right next to me. I kind of have to talk to them.
And is it a girl or a guy?
The guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to see like what the level of, because if it was a girl, that's like a whole other level, right? Of like, so yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there was girls and guys within the work system, but it's like whatever guy I would be like, oh yeah, well, you shouldn't be talking to them that way because they're going to get the wrong idea. They're going to think that you're coming on to them. They're going to, steal you away from me. I'm like, okay, well, clearly this guy has some seriously, insecurities that he needs to deal with.
Yeah.
So that kind of started happening. And then June 2017, I find out that I'm pregnant with my youngest now, which is kind of a shock.
His baby. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of a shock because the divorce wasn't, going anywhere as far as I knew. It's like, well, here I am. It's like, am I a homewrecker? Like, am I the one kind of like separating, him and so, and he had 2 other kids, like I mentioned earlier, from his previous marriage, or I guess then current marriage. And they were right around my older kids' ages. So they get along really well. And like, we always kind of like hung out, went to the park, and like the kids got along really well. And I thought everything was great. I'm like, okay, like, now I'm pregnant. And like, now and I had this idea. It's like, okay, well, I'm pregnant now. It's like, he can't go anywhere. It's like, why would he just leave me? So it's like, I know. So I get pregnant and everything's fine. My mom and dad had, of course, their opinions because this guy was still legally married, and that was the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the pregnancy was fine though. He was very present. Like, he's not only present like pregnancy, but like my kids loved him. Like, really latched onto him. Like, a complete father figure, which is great. And I really, really wanted that for the kids. Not that I was trying to replace their dad, but it's like they don't have a steady male role model to really look up to. So he was very, very present with my kids. And then I knew, because watching him that way, it's like, okay, he's going to be a great dad to our kid. That's going to be so amazing. Like, we're just going to live happily ever after. So get pregnant and then just go through the motions. And then fast forward to March of 2018, I have my son. And then things are fine. And then I had never experienced postpartum depression. Alex, I don't know if you ever did with your two kids.
No.
Yeah, it's like I very much knew that it was a thing, but it's like I never experienced it myself.
What was it like? Because like you didn't have it before, and then I'm sure you like realized during that it was happening.
Yeah, it's like right after I had my son. I'm talking about like the day after. It's like I could just tell like something was wrong. It's like, I mean, I was like folding laundry or doing the dishes or just sitting there feeding my son. It's like I would start crying. I'm like, why am I crying? I should be so happy. I had a new baby. And it's like I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't really I guess realize that it was postpartum. So I ended up going to my OB and like, look, this is going on, like super high emotions going on. I don't know if like my hormones are just trying to kind of balance themselves out again, or it's like postpartum. And she's like, well, let's get you on some antidepressants because I really don't think that this is healthy. You feeling this way while you're trying to take care of not only your newborn, but other two kids. So I'm like, okay, let's go ahead. And I'd never been on antidepressants before. I didn't know what it was like. So I got on those and I didn't even tell my boyfriend at the time that I had postpartum. Like I didn't tell him. That's like, okay, it's like, it'll work itself out and, I'll be fine within a few weeks, whatever. So I was taking the antidepressants. I didn't really feel much of a difference at all. Things were just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, I just kind of talked myself into this being normal and I'll finally kind of snap out of it. And then May of 2018 came as Memorial Day weekend. And I don't know what happened like the day prior or a couple days prior, but it's like, I woke up one morning, it was on Memorial Day weekend, and like things were just super off in our house. It's like the kids were playing outside in the park and like I was taking care of, my youngest son, and things were just really, really strange. I was really confused on what was going on. And I look at him like, what's going on? Like after several hours, just kind of like just trying to brush it off, I just finally confront him like, what's going on? He's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, things are off. You're not even talking to me. What is going on? And then he's kind of like, just trying to play it off as that he's just tired. He had work the, prior day and he was trying to get through the day because he was tired. I'm like, no, I'm not really going to accept that as an answer. Like, we need to talk this through because there's something going on and I'm not going to ignore my instincts on this one this time. And he's like, okay, well, if you really want to know, I'm not happy and I don't love you anymore. Cool. Like, that's really great.
Oh.
So not only am I dealing with, having a newborn and then my postpartum, it's like, then he just like kind of throws this on my plate too. I'm like, well, that's really freaking awesome. So I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to kind of try to stick it through? Do you just want to like go our separate ways? Like, what do you want? He's like, I don't think we should be together anymore. I'm like, so you don't want to be together is what you're saying? He's like, yeah, I don't want to be together. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, obviously I'm like emotionally distraught. Like just my face is just an awful mess. So I tell him like, okay, I'm just going to pack my stuff, going to pack my kids' stuff. I don't have a job at this time. Like I don't have any income coming in myself. I can't support my kids. I'm like, where else am I going to go? I'm not going to live with you under the same roof. I don't have to. So I called my mom and be like, Mom, like this is going on. Like, can I please come back live with you for a little bit? Mm-hmm. And she's like, absolutely. Like my door's always open. So I packed my stuff up. I packed my kids' stuff up. Went to go back moving with my mom and dad, which was great. Not that I'm not thankful, of course. But I moved in with them, got back on my feet in terms of finding a job really quickly at the same place where I actually met him since we worked at the same place a while back. And so I got a job there, still living with mom and dad for a while. And then I finally, 2018 was kind of rough. I mean, I was on antidepressants still, but I didn't really feel like they were working because my depression was just at such an all-time low. So not only was I trying to kind of figure myself out, I was trying to kind of navigate what my life is now. So thoughts started popping into my head about, I kind of borderline suicidal. I never acted on them. But I have thoughts in my head like, oh, well, I'm driving down the road. What happens if I just like hit that tree right there? Would anyone care? Probably not. Just kind of thoughts like that. I never told my parents about it or my siblings or like anyone really, I don't think. So things got really bad, and it was like that for a really long time. And my baby daddy, he was still kind of keep me on the back burner. He would like text me and call me and be like, sometimes I miss you, but sometimes I don't miss you. I think we should maybe, kind of hang out and see if like we kind of rekindle what we did have. I'm like, okay. And of course, like I kind of let him have a hold of my emotions at that time. So we were kind of hanging out on and off, like, throughout the rest of 2018. And then New Year's Eve, he calls me up and be like, oh, like, I don't think I want to hang out with you anymore. I'm like, cool. Like, I mean, landed on me. And like, I should have seen it coming. I didn't, because I was so just in love with him still. But he landed that on me. And then that's when my depression really took a turn. Because I knew that he didn't want to be with me anymore. I didn't really have much of a chance anymore. So it's like, oh my gosh, like, what's the point of living? And it's like, looking back now, it's like, why did I let myself have so much? Why did I let a man have so much of my emotions at the time? Like, I just let him have so much of me when he didn't deserve it. I didn't even deserve that for myself. So,
it's a level of codependence.
Yeah, absolutely. So beginning of 2019 comes, and the thoughts just get like more and more, and just not good. And it's like, I'm constantly just kind of thinking, it's like, oh, well, no one would care if anything happened to me. It's like, I'm just kind of worthless. But at the same time, it's like, well, my kid must think something of me, because I mean, I'm their mom, like they must love me at some point, right? So I was going through all that. Antidepressants didn't work, so I just stopped taking them. I was doing some counseling a little bit through Zoom, and those kind of seemed to help a little bit, just kind of talking stuff out. But it didn't like fix everything, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I finally got to the point where I stopped throwing myself a pity party, and I'm like, okay, Sam, you need to get your shit together and get out of whatever slump you're in. Do whatever you need to do to get out of this really deep, dark hole for the sake of your kids, if no one else. So I finally just like made that very conscious decision just to do that. So I got out of it eventually. It wasn't easy, that's for sure. But as 2019 progressed, like things started getting a lot better, which was really great. Like I could actually have like normal conversations without like, really ugly thoughts coming into my head. And, I don't even think my parents really caught on to how awful things were, even like living under the roof. But yeah, things started getting better. And then, 2020 hit, and then that was COVID. And then he ended up, my baby daddy ended up calling me one day, not probably like end of 2019. And he was like, I kind of feel like, oh no, wait, was this? Yes, 2019. No, 2020, I guess. He called me up and he was like, I really want to get back together with you. I really miss you. I'm like, that's great. Like, but I don't want that. It's not going to happen. And he's kind of been a deadbeat dad ever since he kind of up and left and abandoned us. He didn't ever see our son ever. He didn't pay child support, which it wasn't even something I really cared about, but it's more the fact that.
Is this the first baby daddy?
Second baby daddy.
Second one, okay.
Yeah. He didn't really take any opportunity to see our son, which I felt was very unfortunate. Like, I'm giving you every opportunity to see him and you're not taking it. It's like, I guess that's kind of your whole thing, but it's like, I don't know. I finally just kind of pulled myself up and like slapped myself around. I'm like, get your shit together, because you have a life to live, and you have, little humans who are watching this. And I mean, they need, your example if no one else is. So, I mean, things got better, thankfully. With my ex-husband, he ended up remarrying, which is great for him. We ended things pretty awful, really, really rocky. And I didn't think I was ever actually going to ever be friends with him again. I'm like, we can co-parent fine, but it's like, I mean, that's all it's going to be. Turns out to this day, we're actually really, really good friends. I'm really good friends with his wife. We go on family vacations together. We share holidays, Christmas, Mother's Day, all that stuff together. Which I think is really, really great. Some people don't understand it. That's fine. That's their problem, not mine.
It's healthy.
It's healthy, and I'm pretty sure your kids really like perfect for your kids.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then my other baby daddy number 2, we're very cordial now. We don't talk to each other unless we absolutely have to. It's kind of unfortunate, the fact that he doesn't, my youngest, he's 6 now. My daughter's 12, my oldest is 14. So, I mean, a 6-year-old, like, yeah, I mean, conversations only go so far, but it's like, he's old enough to have a basic conversation over the phone. Like, you can call, you can FaceTime,
Totally.
like, call him, but he doesn't.
Does he pay child support now?
He does, yeah.
Okay, yeah, good. I was gonna say, girl,
Yeah, absolutely.
he doesn't get on that because
Get
he's
your money.
at least supporting his son that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, if that's his prerogative, not saying, you know, really have like much of a close relationship with his son, I mean, that's his problem. I can't force him to be a dad if he doesn't want to be, and that's, I'm not fine, but at the same time, kind of, it is what it is. Like, I'm not gonna be that, you know, that petty, conniving, you know, ex who just doesn't let him see his son. But yeah, like I said, like, we're cordial, we talk, and we have, you know, he comes to pick him up like maybe once every 4 to 6 weeks. He'll see him for a few hours, but that's like as much as he sees them, which is really unfortunate. Thankfully, my youngest, my 6-year-old, he doesn't really ask about his dad. He doesn't ever see, oh, like, you know, when can I see dad, or when can I talk to dad, or when am I, you know, going to go over there? I'm like, I don't know, dude. It's like, it used to be like that, not so much anymore. I think it's just more kind of like as normal anymore.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I got out of whatever slump I was in. It was really rough there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were taking your antidepressants, did you tell your doctor they weren't working?
I did. I went back and like, look, I don't feel like this is working. I don't know if it's because like my depression is so bad and I let it get so bad before I actually hopped on the antidepressants. So they tried to put me on another one, I guess like a stronger, or maybe it's like a stronger dose, but it still didn't work. I just kind of felt like I was sort of like a lost cause at that time. So like, okay, well, so they referred me to the counselor. But yeah, it just didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like everything fell into place.
But it's because you took initiative, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the resilience part. Like, a lot of people who are, you know, going through a lot of that abandonment and neglect and tumultuous relationships, it's really hard to get out of depression, you know, especially if like you just make that decision, like, because it's not that easy. Even though I've never experienced it, I've just heard so many people's stories about depression, and I couldn't even imagine. And like, for you to be, sorry, Bennett, for like cutting you off, but I couldn't even imagine how you did that by yourself, just making that decision. It's resilience, really. I just haven't been in that experience before, but I can only imagine like that takes an insane amount of just, I mean, you're doing it for your kids, but ultimately like you have to be healthy and okay first to be there for your kids. You know, you have to be 100% for yourself to be 100% for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
But Bennett, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that like a lot of times being codependent is like trying to feel something or a reaction to something that happened in your childhood, maybe childhood wounds, you know, it's different from person to person. You did say that you had a stable upbringing. So what did you have to heal within yourself in order to be like, you know what, I need to do this for my kids and I need to do this for myself, but it can't be with somebody else. It has to be by myself, for myself.
Yeah, you know, I mean, growing up is like you said, like things were very, very stable. I always kind of had an issue with acceptance, like rejection is like my biggest fear. It always has been. I didn't really realize that until adulthood. So when I kept getting rejected, like by my ex-husband and then by like my baby daddy and just like over and over and over, it's kind of like, it's like, wow, this is like really just like bashing you down. It's really, really awful. But it's like, I don't know. It's like, I guess having the love that I had like in my childhood, like with my, you know, my mom and dad just giving me the love and undivided attention that like, not just me, but like all my siblings were able to get. It's like, I really wanted that for my kids. Like they might not have their dad and me together, but it's like, why do I have to have them with me in order to figure my shit out? It's like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I finally just kind of like a light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, maybe it's time to finally just like stop like sulking and just get my shit together, because it's not going to get any better unless I for one actually put the work into it.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, I had a question. Let me think about it real quick. It'll come back to me, but I have a couple. So what is your living situation now? And like, where are you at now in life?
Yeah, things are really, really good. And I'm like the happiest I've been in such a long time. It's like, it's just like, I'm not dating. It's like, I feel like, I mean, I've dated like since like this whole crap went down, but I feel like, I'm not saying like all men aren't garbage. Just like, just the men that I run into are garbage. So, yeah, but things are great. We're living in just like a little rinky-dink little apartment. We make it work. It's kind of crammed, but it's like, I have a good job. Like I have a great relationship with my kids. Like I probably only have like 3 friends, which is kind of like what I prefer. It's like quality over quantity, whole thing. So, but things are great. It's like, I mean, I have my shit together. It's like, I'm a hard ass, which I feel like I kind of need to be, especially like after all the crap that you do go through in life. It's kind of like, it kind of creates like this hard shell, but it's like, I'm loyal to a fault. It's like, I will like be there for you. I will give you the shirt off my back. It's like, but second you cross me, it's like, I'm just cutting off all ties because I just don't deal with that anymore.
For sure. When's your birthday?
It's in March. I'm a Pisces.
Okay.
Ooh.
March what?
9th.
Okay. Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. So when people leave you like that, it just creates abandonment issues, you know, subconsciously. So whether you realize it or not, like how much that affected you, it did a lot because your nervous system is now on high alert. You're in fight or flight. You're maybe even dissociating and like throughout your relationships and like worried that people are going to leave. That's just abandonment issues and trusting that, you know, if you're with somebody that they're not going to leave. You just never know because people have just up and dipped out. And so really subconsciously, without even realizing it, your nervous system is like it's just like crazy what the brain does when people do, you know, even as an adult, you don't realize the effects of it, what it has on you. And then really talk therapy is great. I think that everybody should be in therapy, not just talk therapy. It's like somatic therapy. That's really going to like heal the nervous system. Cause like when I was growing up, like I always said before I ever started therapy, I always said that I had a great childhood too. And not saying that you didn't, and yours could be completely different than mine. You could have had just like a really great childhood and like no trauma at all. But mine, like my parents were alcoholics or are alcoholics. And it's like the abandonment that I suffered through my childhood. I didn't realize when they became drunk that I couldn't rely on them anymore. So it was like neglect and abandonment issues that really affected me throughout my whole life up until like I really realized that I did suffer through actually a lot of trauma through my childhood that I didn't even know. And I would say, no, my parents were always showing me love. Like they never hurt me. They were always there. Like they never, like they always had me whenever they should have because they weren't together since I was 30. So I always said up until really healing a few years ago that I had a great childhood, which I did. But I also had a lot of fear in my childhood and it affected me a lot throughout my relationship. Something that I didn't even realize that happened to me. So just the effects of like traumatic situations and really people who are resilient don't realize how much it's affecting us. And you picked yourself up and you move forward, which I had to say it again, like for you to be going through that depression and like all of that to actually make that decision and do it is so hard. So good for you. And I'm really proud of you and where you're at today. And you're a great mother and your kids will see that, you know, when they get older, especially like when they're adults, they'll be able to see that you didn't give up and that you're always there for them. And I'm like, I love that for you.
Thank you.
Well, Samantha, you did an amazing job telling your story for real. Like, I appreciate you going into all the detail and, you know, explaining everything that went on. And I'm really happy that you're in a better place. At the end of our interviews, we always ask our guests what resilience means to them. So what does resilient mean to you?
I really just feel like there's kind of like always a quote that I kind of like have resonated with. It's like, you never really know how strong you are and have no other choice. But I feel like I read that so long ago. And I feel like that kind of is something that really just kind of like lit a fire under my ass when I felt like I did kind of like need to pick myself up. I'm like, okay, like I'm stronger than what I'm giving myself credit for. If you can actually, I guess, consciously and very intentionally just kind of like let that sink in and just kind of pull yourself up off the floor when, even if like you do have like help and support, but if you feel like you can't obviously go to anyone for support and you have to kind of pick yourself up. I mean, your future self will thank you. And
100%.
Yes. It's like, I look back now, it's like, wow, I'm so thankful I didn't give up. And like, I didn't, go through with all of like these stupid like thoughts that I was thinking. It's like my life now, it's really great. And I'm at such a great place mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And just like everything is just going so well. And I
love that. That makes me so happy for you.
Thank you.
But it's so true though. Like you can't depend on anybody but yourself. Like you only have yourself. And it sounds like so like easy to like understand, but it's like for real. Because I didn't really understand it to how I do now until this year. Because I thought I was gonna be with somebody forever and they just up and left one day and it was a shocker. And then not that I relied on him, but I just thought that I was gonna be able to have someone that I was gonna grow old with forever, and like actually rely on him for things that I might need emotionally, or just knowing that I didn't have that. And I really thought I did. So it's like a different level of like understanding that you only have yourself. You really only have yourself, no matter what. Even if you have your parents, you might not always have your parents. They might be gone tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, you only have yourself, and you have to make sure that yourself is 100%.
Absolutely.
Well said. Very well said. Very good job. You spoke very well, and your story was amazing. And
people will really resonate. Listeners will really resonate, and they might be in similar situations. A lot of us have been there before, and hearing this, I could say if I heard this a year ago, it would be really helpful. So
yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right. Thank you so much again, Samantha, for sharing your story. And if you want to share your story of resilience, hit us up on email, resilientaf3@gmail.com. Just give us a little snippet of your story and we'll hit you back.
Yeah.
Also, because I almost forgot this, if you want to follow us individually, you can.
Yeah.
I'm at that Dreas.
I'm at BennettKnows.
You heard?
Yes, you did. And make sure you follow us on Instagram, the podcast, at ResilientAF3.
That's it.
Yes. And don't forget.
Don't forget what?
1 year anniversary party. We're working on it on our end, but we are going to celebrate 1 year of resilience with our special guests and listeners. Tell them about it. Give them more info.
I'm going to right now because we have a lot of the details hammered out. So it's going to be end of August, and we're going to release the date, the time, the location, the who, what, where, when, why, and how.
Yes.
Very soon. Every single guest who has been a guest on the podcast is going to be invited to this party. A lot of our guests have been from across the states, so it'd be amazing if we can get as many as there as possible. You can also purchase tickets. So once I have the link, I will put on my story. You can either purchase a VIP ticket, which means you can come an hour before the show and you can hang with us, eat with us, drink with us, chat with us before the podcast starts.
Yes.
And then you're going to be up front and personal. So, and then also we're going to, it's a live podcast. We're going to actually have our listeners be guests for different segments during the live podcast. And it's going to be so much fun. So we're going to have someone come up and talk about their peak and their pit for the week. We're going to have someone come up and ask me a question for Ask Alex and Bennett. I was getting to it. I haven't forgotten about you. I think it's a good one though.
Yep.
That we should change. Ask Alex and Bennett. And then we're going to have a resilient guest sharing a story.
Yep.
We're gonna have someone play me against trivia, maybe Bennett against trivia, and it's just gonna be so much fun, like interaction with the people who listen and the guests who have shared their story. And I just can't wait to meet y'all. So keep a lookout for that link for tickets.
It's gonna be a resilient ass evening for
Hell
sure.
yeah, let's get it.
Yeah.
All the details done so we can get it posted.
Yeah. Okay.
So end of August, make sure you save the date. I know you don't know the actual date, but it's the end of August. So keep your calendars open.
Yeah.
And that's it for this